Good evening, and welcome to the Cambridge Community Candidate Forum for the upcoming election for the County Board of Education. I'm Glenna Heckathorn, co-chair of the League of Women Voters Midshore, and I'll be your moderator tonight. Special thanks goes to WHCP, Cambridge Community Radio, for the use of their studios and handling the technical logistics on tonight's broadcast. WHCP is one of the sponsors of the Cambridge Community Conversations, along with the Cambridge Association of Neighborhoods, the Dorchester Chamber of Commerce, the Dorchester Banner, and the Dorchester Star. Citizens will vote for the Board of Education on November 3rd, the day of the national elections. Everyone should already have received through the mail an application for a mail-in ballot. If you did not receive an application, October 20 is the last day to request a mail-in ballot. You can also vote early in person from October 26th through November 2nd at the county office building from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Or, finally, you can vote the old-fashioned way in person at one of the two high schools or the county office building on November 3rd. For more information, go to, and I think you should see this on the bottom of your screen, voterservices.elections.maryland.gov. Here's how we're going to proceed tonight. We have two candidates from District 3 and two candidates from District 5 who will be debating tonight. There are also two candidates running in District 1, but Phil Bramble was unable to attend the debate, which meant that Mike Diaz would not be able to debate. League rules require that there be at least two candidates running for an office to participate in a debate. Districts 2 and 4 are not holding elections until 2022. The debate will proceed as follows. Candidates will each have 2 minutes to make their opening statements. They will have 1 minute to answer each question, and they will have 1.5 minutes to make their final statements. We're keeping time here with a digital clock displayed on our back wall that will show the candidates how much time remains for their remarks. The questions that we're asking tonight were solicited from the public in advance of the forum, and we'll begin with those. We invite the audience, however, to submit additional questions to the candidates during the forum by opening the chat feature on your video feed and typing in your questions. We have a trusty question analyst who will pass them on to me. I'll ask as many questions as time allows. So now I'm going to introduce the candidate names to you, and you will see them on camera shortly. From Ward 3, we have Susan Morgan and William Rice. From Ward 5, we have Voncia Molock and Laura Layton. So we will begin with the introductory portion, and we'll ask the candidates to give their opening remarks about why they are running for the Board of Education and how they stand out from their opponents. And we'll begin with Phil Rice.
Good evening. My name is Phil Rice. I am running for Board of Education. I have an interesting background that I think qualifies me for this particular position. First of all, I was a teacher in Dorchester County for 5 years. I was on the city council for 12 years. 9 of those 12 years, I was finance chairman. I was a vice president at a bank for 24 years, running the bookkeeping and information technology operation. I also ran a service business at the same time. I was assistant general manager for a fuel business for 9 years. The one thing I do understand is money, how to spend it. Take that back. How to invest it, not spend it. We have had some issues around with the group together trying to get things done. One person can't make anything happen, but one person can slow it down. Right now, we have a wonderful group of people, and we're moving in the right direction. All we have to do is get our children back in school, and we'll find out how right that direction is. With that being said, I will solicit your vote. Hopefully you believe that in the past, I have had your best interests at heart. Obviously, none of us are doing this for the money, believe me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll introduce Susan Morgan.
Hi, I'm Susan Morgan, and I'm running for the District 3 seat on the Dorchester County Board of Education. I want to thank the League of Women Voters and WHCP for hosting this forum. I have spent the majority of my career in the field of education. I've taught at the university level, and I was a resource counselor in the Maryland Public Schools for over 20 years. I worked with students at all levels from kindergarten through high school. I've been successful in implementing programs to address a wide range of student needs. But what I want to emphasize tonight is that the Dorchester County School Board needs change. We need a board that's more attuned to the needs of students and teachers today. The world has changed, and the needs of our students and teachers are not the same as they were in the past. We need a board that's concerned that children enter school without the academic, social, and emotional readiness needed for success. We need a board that's concerned that our children's test scores are next to the lowest in the state, and that according to the Partnership for Assessment of Readiness for College and Careers, only 7% of graduating seniors from Cambridge South Dorchester High School are proficient in math. We need a board that's concerned that our wonderful Career and Tech Center is underutilized, and that students who need direction and could use what the Tech Center has to offer are graduating with no skills in the workplace. But concern about these issues is not enough. We have a new superintendent who wants to improve the system, but needs the support and creativity of a student-centered school board. We need a board that's willing to lead the change that our students and teachers so desperately need. I believe I can be part of that change.
Thank you. And now we'll hear from Laura Layton.
Good evening, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for giving us this forum to inform the citizens of our qualifications. My name is Laura Layton. I have a bachelor's degree in English from Towson State College and a master's degree in education from Salisbury State College. I have been living in Dorchester County for 50 years, and in that 50 years, 34 of those years were spent teaching in our middle and high schools. I've taught both at North Dorchester High and Cambridge South Dorchester High School, where I taught for the last 18 years of my career. My husband, our two children, both all graduated from Dorchester County Schools, from North Dorchester, actually. One grandson graduated from North Dorchester, and we have a granddaughter who will be a senior at North Dorchester this year. I am highly invested in the future of our county education. After I retired from teaching, I became an active member of Dorchester Retired Educators. I served as president for several years. While I was president, I decided that it was very important to attend every board meeting. I did, and the first thing I discovered was that there were no women on the Board of Education. I knew at that point that I had to at least try to remedy that situation. That is why I ran for office. I have the very unique perspective of a teacher, a parent, a grandparent, and a retired educator.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Now we'll hear from our last candidate, Voncia Molock.
Good evening, Dorchester County family, and thank you to the League of Women Voters and WHCP. My name is Voncia Molock, and I'm running for the District 5 seat on the Dorchester County Board of Education. For those who don't know me, I was raised on Puckham Road in El Dorado, and I graduated as valedictorian from North Dorchester High School in the great class of 1984. My parents are Ernest and Brenda West. My grandparents, Evelyn Ferrer and the late Andrew Ferrer. My brother is David West. I'm married to the wonderful Rudolph Molock Jr., who is a sixth-generation farmer and owner of Molock Transportation. We have 4 amazing children: Nicholas, a captain in the Army; Javon, a government analyst; Voncia, a junior at Morgan State University; and Raven, a junior at North Dorchester High. As I said in the beginning, I'm just a girl from Puckham, but I can tell you this: my Dorchester County public school education was a great base that enabled me to successfully complete my bachelor's and master's degrees. I have 33 years of real-world experience to bring to the Board of Education. Real-world experience with contracts, unions, children, and distance learning. Experience with being held accountable for results and implementing game-changing technology for 2 of the largest corporations in America. Currently, I'm the director of the Service One IT support team at Purdue Farms, and I truly value my faith, my family, lifelong learning, and teamwork. So why am I here tonight? I'm here running for this seat because I'm not the type of person to just complain about things and do nothing. Parents, I hear your concerns about the lack of progress our children are making. Teachers, I saw your tears as you described the violent conditions in your classrooms. Students, I hear your pain when you're not treated fairly in the school system. I'm running because there's too much at stake. I'm running because I believe in our children and our staff, and we owe it to them to have board members with a proven success record who are willing to roll up our sleeves, bring in new ideas, and get turned around now.
Thank you so much. We're now going to commence the question portion, and we're going to rotate who goes first. And we're going to ask our candidates to be ready when it's your turn to go first. So Susan Morgan is going to be first for our first question, which is, what are your top priorities for the board in the next 2 years, and what plans do you have to meet them?
I'm going to do that in 1 minute. Okay. I have 4 priorities. One is to make sure a solid alternative ed program is up and running, a program for disruptive behavior, and something to address safety concerns. My second would be kindergarten readiness, enlisting adults in the community to help getting kindergartners ready. Third would be increasing the enrollment at DCTC, which is Dorchester Career and Technology Center. And 4 would be to make plans make salaries for teachers more competitive with other schools on the Eastern Shore.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Laura Layton.
My first priority for the next 2 years, and particularly right now, is to get all of our kids safely back in school. This is not as easy as it sounds, given the conditions that we must meet through the health department and the CDC. But we are working on it. We have put some of our kids back in school already in the last 3 weeks. The next priority would be dealing with the emotional and mental health issues that have come out of this pandemic. It has been very hard, particularly on our teenagers, and we must deal with the mental health issues that they are facing. We have many, many priorities. We have set them as a board and for the superintendent. We need to grow in our retention of experienced teachers. We need pre-K for every student. We need every student on reading level by the end of the 3rd grade, and much more. Thank you.
Thank you. Voncia Molock will speak next.
My priorities for the Board of Education: school safety, our existing policies regarding student and staff safety as well as bullying must be administered consistently and fairly. School readiness, preschool education and preparedness is essential for our children. Student achievement, we can, we must, we will do better. I believe that if we work closely with students to help them see what they can be, they will be intrinsically motivated to stay in school and complete their course of study. And budget transparency, our work to make sure that all stakeholders have input into the budget by attending meetings, listening to all views, and requiring a thorough benefit analysis for any spending request.
Thank you very much. And our final candidate is Phil Rice to answer the same question.
The absolute most important thing that we need to do this year and the next year, is make sure all our children are in the schools. Face-to-face learning is the only way it works well. There are some who can do it otherwise, but that will certainly enhance the productivity. We need to up our graduation rate. The goal is to make it 95%. We have a goal of increasing reading for the first year by 1 grade level from the beginning of the semester to the end, to increase mathematics by 20% over their current level, which is not in great shakes, but you got to take a step at a time. I also know that apprenticeship programs for more items at DCTC will make that work. After all, you can't teach somebody how to get a job unless there's a job to get.
Thank you. Our second question will go to Laura Layton first. And the question is, how can the Board of Education and the Department of Education help struggling parents who need to work during a COVID-19 epidemic oversee their children's school from home?
One of the things that Dr. Salmon said in her last press conference was that child care facilities could now go back to their pre-pandemic capacity. That is one thing. I think the Board of Education can make sure that we get our schools open fully as soon as it is safely possible. Many of our parents are working full time, and it is a great deal of problem for them to have to be at home every other week. We have made accommodations for our teachers' children so that we can get all of our staff back, but we also need to figure out how to get every child back in school so every parent can go to work.
Thank you. And now we'll ask Voncia Molock to answer the same question.
Thank you. How can the board help struggling parents? I'm one of those struggling parents. I have a junior at North Dorchester High. And one of the things that I thought would be really helpful is if parents received more training for the technology that was being rolled out, more training on how to use it, more training on what we can expect, in person or online support that would be accessible to parents at times other than just during the school day, because a lot of us are working during that time. So I thought that would be very helpful if the board could do that.
Thank you. Next up is Phil Rice.
Well, the obvious answer to the question is get the kids back in school. That's the obvious answer to the question. However, in lieu of that, I have learned today that we are working on getting the classes such that you can look at them later at night. Therefore, you will be able to go over those lessons if you are a full-time working parent. That's in the mix now. It probably will be kicked out this month. So that's the other part of it. Having the teachers' children in school is a big deal too, because then you don't lose the teachers. So with that in mind, I'm glad I'm not a parent trying to do this. I know that when we started with the elementary curriculum, I lost sense of how to do a math problem myself, and I'm a math major.
Thank you so much. And our final respondent is Susan Morgan.
I've heard from many parents how frustrating it can be when they can't help their children. It would be helpful, as Ms. Molock said, to have more lessons or more things online to help parents to understand things, to be able to help their children. It's hard being exposed to curriculum they're not familiar with, and I really do feel that the board could help with that by putting things online.
Thank you very much. Okay, our third question will go first to Voncia Molock. And the question is, what are the advantages and disadvantages of virtual teaching and learning? And how might the disadvantages be overcome?
Advantages and disadvantages of virtual learning. Well, I'm just going to go based on my experience because I've done a lot of virtual learning. I continue to do a lot of virtual learning, and in the real world, we do it all the time. So some advantages of it are that there's one-on-one instruction, and that means I can go at my pace. If I want to see a lesson rewound, I can rewind it. If the lesson is going too slow and I want to go faster, I can do that as well. So going at my pace is really helpful for me with distance learning. However, at the same time, you don't have that interaction, and that's a disadvantage. However, I think if we take advantage of the collaboration technology that's out there so that we're talking to each other, so that we're working together. I work with people all over the world all the time with distance learning, and the more we talk and speak, the better it is.
Thank you so much. And now we'll ask Phil Rice. Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yeah.
Okay, what are the advantages?
I tend to lose track every once in a while.
Okay, what are the advantages and disadvantages of virtual teaching and learning? And how might the disadvantages be overcome?
Well, there's really no one answer to it. I look at the very young children. I don't see many advantages. As I looked into the youngsters in middle school and high school, there are other advantages. For adults, there's tremendous advantages. But what we can do is we can limit the number of days the school is closed by tapping into the online learning on a snow day, on days when the teachers are out, on other days. So we can get to the point where we don't lose many days out of 180 days. That's a plus. The other plus is every child now has a device. That was in the mix for years. Financing was the killer. The federal government has come up with the financing, so that got pushed ahead, and that's one of the big pluses out of the whole item.
Thank you. And finally, we'll hear from Susan Morgan.
The advantages to online learning are one-on-one, being able to get the information right there at your face. Children enjoy being right up front when they're trying to learn. They're able to hear it, see it, rewind it, be able to see it again. My niece is dealing with the online learning, and one of the problems is she has a reading disability. So it was impacting her ability to learn. We talked about ways to work around it, strategies, and she was able to then pick up and start learning, which was important. I think we need to have some ideas from the board on how they could work through these issues.
Thank you so much. And our last speaker on this question is Laura Layton.
The advantages of virtual learning are that kids are very familiar with technology. Even our youngest kids are comfortable with it. They understand it. They are not afraid of it, and they are very comfortable. They are learning from home. They understand it. The disadvantages, however, are overwhelming. First of all, they lack socialization. I have seen this in so many students. There are no opportunities, and particularly Dorchester County is such a rural area. There are very few opportunities for country kids to socialize. This was a big problem during the quarantine and the early days of the pandemic.
Thanks so much. We're going to go to our fourth question, and we'll begin with Phil Rice. The question is, teachers and parents report violence in the classroom over the last several years. What measures should the board and superintendent take to ensure the safety and health of the students, teachers, and staff?
All right, most of those things, there has been violence in the school since I taught. It's different today. Not the existence, but the intensity of it's different. But what we do, we have changed our policies. We've updated our policies on bullying. We've updated our policies on any violence at all. We're not taking that lightly. We're trying to put this is the way it's going to be issue. We are certainly increasing our camera ability in each and every building to be able to oversee it. We're making sure that our teachers and other staff members in the school are in the hallways during class change. That seems to be the biggest time when something's going to occur. So we've tried to use some preventative measures to make that work.
Thank you. Next up is Susan Morgan.
Safety in the schools is a great concern on the part of parents and teachers in our community. I believe disruptive behavior that results in safety concerns can be addressed constructively through a solid program of alternative education. Many students enter DCPS lacking the academic, social, and emotional readiness to learn. This can result in disruptive behavior that threatens the safety of all. To address these concerns, I've advocated for a multi-layered alternative program to be considered. Alternative classes, I hear, are now in schools in the county, along with the new directions as a second level for students not successful in the school level programs. Dr. Teresa Berry is the new interim principal, and I'm quite excited to see this change and feel it will ameliorate much of the safety concerns that parents and teachers currently have.
Thank you so much. Next, we'll hear from Laura Layton.
Thank you. Safety is one of our primary concerns. And we understand that it is the safety of the staff as well as the safety of the student. We have put security cameras in all of our schools. We have much, much more coverage than we did this time a year ago. And through that, we not only can keep a watch on what's going on, but we can also rewind these cameras and see what came before it, who was instigating, how it came to be, and what was the follow-up. Bullying is a constant concern. As Mr. Rice said, we have changed our bullying guidelines and protocols and reporting measures to try to keep this at a minimum. We have restorative practice training for all of our PD staff.
Thank you so much. And now we'll hear from Voncia Molock.
What can the board do to curb our issues with violence in our schools? I absolutely believe and agree with Susan that we need to put programs in place to help students correct their behavior and actually succeed. Our students need to feel that they belong in Dorchester County schools, that they are included, that everyone is treated fairly. And we need to review our behavior policies to make sure that they're administered fairly. And I think if we do that, we'll see much improvements in our student behaviors.
Thank you very much. Our next question will go first to Susan Morgan. And the question is, in your opinion, what are the most important recommendations in the Kerwin report?
What are the most important recommendations? I feel like the most important recommendations from the Kerwin report are the reduction of class sizes. I know that a reduction of even 5 to 7 students can make a big difference in the learning ability of students in a classroom. I feel that I agree that teachers need more time for planning, and they need to be paid better. Those are several of the important Kerwin recommendations. And I believe that the teachers in Dorchester County are paid next to the lowest on the Eastern Shore. So that's something that I would certainly be looking into.
Thank you so much. Now we'll ask Laura Layton the same question.
The Kerwin report makes many, many, many recommendations about education, and quite a few of them are very expensive. The 3 that I think are very important is money for mental health. There is a substantial amount of money which will come to the counties in order to provide mental health for our students. And I think this is a crucial part of the piece. There is also money for teachers. That is important. We are one of the lowest paid counties as far as teacher compensation, but unfortunately, we are bound by what the county and state give us. We cannot manufacture money. We look at every single penny we spend and we try to get the most out of it. The third thing I think is crucial is pre-K. The Kerwin report actually provides and hopes that we will get pre-K for the entire county.
Thank you. Now we'll turn to Vonica Molock.
The 3 most important recommendations. Honestly, when I read through some of the Kerwin report, I thought, wow, that's a lot of information. And I'm the kind of person that likes to digest things, to look, to study, to understand what the real implications are going to be in our county. But I can say that I agree absolutely wholeheartedly with pre-K. Pre-K is so important. Funding for pre-K is just so important. I've lived in other states where they don't even allow children to enter public school if they're not proficient at the pre-K level. And it reduces so many problems going forward if they do that. So pre-K is absolutely critical. Funding is absolutely critical. There's a lot of things that we can do with the recommendations in that report.
Thank you so much. And finally, we'll hear from Phil Rice.
The current report, I'll wait for you. Current report is ambitious. However, the piece of it which we've already received some benefit from is the increased pay for teachers. That is critical, and it has to come from the state down because the counties cannot afford to do it. Universal pre-K, I've been preaching that for 10, 15 years. You take a child at that age, they suck up information like a sponge. You'll learn more in the first 3, 4 years than you probably will the rest of your life, and you'll retain it. So with that, if you can get the youngsters going, teach 3 things: math of some sort, phonics reading, and how to get along with one another, then our school system be way better off.
Thank you so much. Our 6th question will begin with Laura Layton. And the question is, a number of teachers have left Dorchester to join schools in other Maryland counties. What steps can the board take to retain teachers in Dorchester schools?
I think that there are several steps that we can take, and we have already started to do that. And we have already had some of our staff return. We can reach out to them. We have a very strong leadership team at this point. We have Superintendent Bromwell and 4 directors who are very strong, and they are networking constantly to reach out, not just to the people who have left, but also to those people who we believe would be a good addition to our leadership team and our staff. Actually, also, another thing that we can do is improve compensation. We are one of the lower paid counties for our staff, and I realize this. We have to make this better. We have to give them better working conditions, a positive attitude, a pat on the back.
Thank you so much. We'll turn now to Voncia Molock.
What steps can we take to work better with our teachers? Well, listening to our teachers, I think, has to be very high on the list. They have the experience, they're in the classrooms, they know what the issues are, and they know what they need. Our board needs to listen to them. And absolutely, improve compensation, make sure they're paid fairly. But we also need to make sure we're recruiting diverse teachers and that we're partnering with local colleges and universities to make sure that we are able to get some students, some student teachers, some resources from our colleges and universities and have a partnership that makes that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Molock. Now we'll turn to Phil Rice.
Teachers are just like any other employee. They want to be paid for what they do. They want to be appreciated for what they do. They want to feel as though they're a part of the solution. I think with the management team that's in place, that has turned around 180 degrees. More funding, obviously, is a good way to, but people don't necessarily always leave just for money. Sometimes they leave for conditions and not money. We're trying to eliminate the conditions that would fall in that category. Every year, we ask the county commissioners for the money that we think we need rather than what we think they'll give us. So we're always advocating for more money to do what we need to do. Paying the teachers is certainly one of them. But you know, sometimes when you pat somebody on the back and said, you really did a good job, it goes a long way.
Thank you. And finally, we will turn to Susan Morgan.
DCPS offers a great benefit package. That's one of the things I first heard when talking to teachers here. But the starting salary for DCPS teachers is the lowest on the Eastern Shore. The starting salary is $49,885. May sound like a lot to a lot of people, but it's not when you're trying to raise a family. We need to find a way to pay our teachers a wage that's competitive. We need to work with the city council, county council to achieve this goal. And as far as recruiting, we need to start looking at historically Black colleges to recruit more teachers so that students in the school system will be able to see themselves when they look at the teachers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So you mentioned the county council, and we'll ask Voncia Molock to be first to answer our next question. And that is, what influence can the board have on the county council for budget decisions in light of the many requests that have gone to by the superintendent that have gone unanswered by the council?
I would say that a relationship with the council members is a must, right? Sometimes it's going to be hard to understand the viewpoint or understand the ask or request without some type of relationship. So I would think that the board should make an effort to have a relationship with the council members so that they're working together and that we're on the same page in terms of what the vision is and what the accomplishment will be.
Thank you. And now we turn to Phil Rice. Same question. What influence can the board have on the county council's budget decisions?
Be good stewards of their money. Don't waste their money. When they give us money, don't spend it, invest it. Always look for a return for every dollar you spend. That way you can justify having that money. With that in mind, we have for several years have had little dinner get-togethers with one council person and one of us on the board, just to exchange ideas and to get to know one another better. So the idea of having a relationship is certainly a smart one, and it's certainly one that we have already tried and working at it. And the other part of it is, I understand what it is to be on the side where you're raising taxes. With the city, you never wanted to raise taxes on anybody, but you had to come up with more money. So with that being said, you just have to have a relationship.
Thank you. And now we'll turn to Susan Morgan.
I agree. Relationships are important, and having a relationship with the county council is definitely the way to go. Another thing, though, is the cost to teach a student here in Dorchester County is about $16,775 per student. The average cost in the state is $13,222. So we're spending more money to educate students who are coming out with fewer qualifications for better jobs. So I think something's happening with the money here. Another way of maybe earning some money would be to open up the DCTC to adult learning in the evening, something that could bring in some money also for the county. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we turn to Laura Layton.
It is extremely important to have a relationship with the county council. It's extremely important to be personal, to be individualized. About 3 years ago, the board started meeting for a dinner meeting with the county council, with the county manager, and either one or two of the county council members. I was one of the board members who met with the council, and this relationship was extremely productive. It continued on through the change of council, and then the pandemic interrupted the time, but we are back to meeting. We are meeting again, 2 board members and the superintendent with 2 council people and the county manager. This is an extremely productive relationship.
Thank you so much. Okay, we will turn to our 8th question, and we'll begin with Phil Rice. The question is, the geographical size of Dorchester County with limited transportation and communication networks is challenging. How will you communicate with your constituents given our diverse and dispersed society?
Well, the size of Dorchester County is immense. It's the largest county in the state of Maryland. My constituency, my direct constituency, is kind of shrunken into 2 wards of the city. Speaking with people outside of my constituency, if you would, for other areas of the county, has never been a problem. I'm available. I go out and go places. I ask questions. Nobody has ever called me when I haven't answered. So I am available to anybody, whether they are actually in my district or out of my district. It doesn't really make any difference. Our whole idea on this board is to do the best job we can for the students, not for us.
Thank you. And now we'll turn to Susan Morgan.
How would I, as a board member, reach my constituency? I've already thought about that a lot, and I've talked with people as I've been out campaigning and let them know that I want to be available. I want to have the board, what's going on the board, be transparent for them. I want them to know what's happening. I would like to have regular meetings with parents at the schools if necessary, or at the Board of Education. I want to be available. I will have a website that they can reach me through. I want that to make it easier to ask me questions. They will have my email address, because I feel that communication is at the heart of this, and I want to be that person to be available anytime. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll ask Laura Layton to respond.
Responding to my constituents is very important to me. I answer every email, I answer every phone call, every message. I am very much aware of listening to the people who elect me. Many of you know that I own a business. On Saturday and Sunday afternoons, I am always available. And let me tell you, during certain times in our board history, my office has been full on Saturday and Sunday afternoons of people who come out and talk to me. So those are the ways that I am available. I consider every person in Dorchester County my constituents, not just those that live in District 5, but I listen to everyone. I'm available to everyone. I'm out in public. I'm a very public person, and I want to be available.
Thank you. And finally, we'll turn to Voncia Molock.
How will I communicate with constituents? Well, I'm a technologist, so email works really well for me. I have a Twitter account, other social media, if that's convenient for folks. But my cell phone is always on. I'm on call for my job anyway, 24/7. So there's never a bad time to call me. If I don't answer, leave me a message and I'll get back to you. One other thing that I would like to say though is at our board meetings, our constituents don't have a chance to speak. And that would be one of the first things that I would change. One of the absolute first things that I would change. Thanks.
Thank you. And now we are going to turn to a new question. There have been complaints about the quality of sound in the streaming of board meetings. Is there anything you think you could do to improve the streaming during board meetings? And we'll ask Susan Morgan first.
That's really a technology question and I know that we've had the same sorts of issues with the city council as far as being able to hear. And I believe that the school system could be working on that with the technology programs that they have. But I feel that that's really a technology question.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Laura Layton, would you like to comment on that?
Yes. The board is very much aware that we have a problem with sound, and that is the reason that we moved from the boardroom into DCTC. We decided that the public needed access to our meetings, I guess over a year ago, well before the pandemic started. And the sound in the boardroom was not conducive to live streaming our meetings. So we moved to DCTC in order to try to alleviate that. We have asked our IT team over and over to rectify the problem. It has been very difficult for them to solve. We do work on it, and we are constantly asking them to please take care of it. Again, this is a technology issue. I have very little knowledge of that, of sound systems, so I don't know how to fix it myself. I have to rely on our employees, and they seem to be working as diligently as possible.
Thank you. And Vonica Molock? Voncia, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Streaming. Audio issues while live streaming. Well, I'm in IT. I see issues like that on a daily basis. So while I may not know how to solve it, I know lots of people who can. So if our IT folks are having issues, give me a call. Maybe I've got somebody that can partner up with us and make it better. Thanks.
Thanks so much. And Phil Rice, your last up on the technology question.
Okay. Technology question has been a matter of appropriate devices and feedback through the sound system that's in the building, both of which have been horrendous. When you hear a bunch of squealing and going on, nobody else is listening. I'm sorry, it's just the way it is. That's a problem that's solvable because it's a technology problem. Therefore, it's solvable. Our people are working on it. They don't get it straight by the end of the year. We'll get it straight without them. So it's just one of those things. I agree with this lady. It's a technology problem. Therefore, it's solvable. I might not know how, but I can find out how. So that's as far as I'm concerned, that's in the mill, that's working and will be resolved.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's turn to a new question, and we'll have Laura Layton first up. Our question is, how would you ensure that complaints from your constituents are handled and resolved fairly?
Well, first of all, I would have to say that I do that several times a week. If it's not a problem that I can resolve myself, I will take it to the appropriate director or to the superintendent. This happens frequently. That's why people call. They call to voice their concerns and complaints. And I always take their concerns. If it's not something that I immediately know the answer to, I will take it to the appropriate director, or I will take it to our superintendent. And this happens very, very often. I would say at least 2 to 3 times a week, people will reach out. And the solution is to get the proper answer from the responsible person in the system. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll turn now to Voncia Molock.
So how would I ensure that complaints are handled and resolved fairly? Again, I'm going to draw on my corporate experience here because that's what I do on a daily basis. So one thing that we do is we log all of our complaints. We look for root causes. We look for ways to prevent those complaints in the future. And we also log the resolution of all complaints so that we can be preventive and proactive in some cases. So I would recommend that we do the same thing. And that's what I would do. Log the complaint, look for the root cause, make sure somebody's getting it worked, and keep a record of the complaints that we have and what we're able to accomplish together.
Thank you. Phil Rice.
Being a board member, it's not your job to run the school system. In fact, it's just the opposite. It's pointed out very graphically within COMAR that it's not your job to run the school system day to day. When you get complaints, you need to give them off to the people who are responsible for running the school system day to day. Top on that list is the superintendent of schools. However, you can certainly follow up and make sure that something is at least being done with it. Even though you can't interfere with how it's being done, you can certainly ask pointed questions to make sure that at least it's being resolved in accordance with our rules. That's all we can work with. What are the rules and regulations that we have to deal with? And is it being, are those issues being in compliance with those items? That's our job. That's what we get paid for, and that's what we need to do.
Thank you. And then finally, we'll ask Susan Morgan the same question.
I would handle parental calls or calls and complaints the same way I did when I was working as a resource counselor. I kept track of all my calls, whether I called them back. I gave myself a maximum of 24 hours to return a call or an email. I would keep track of how it was resolved. I'd like to be able to perform some sort of root cause analysis to see why these are coming in, what's happening that would be bringing these in. It's important, I think, to respond as quickly as possible to any complaint coming in to a school board member. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to turn to the subject of children who have special needs, and we'll begin with Voncia Molock. And the question is, what would you do to ensure that every child with special needs has an appropriate individualized education program that would work in virtual learning classrooms?
That's an interesting question.
That's 2 questions.
Yeah, so IEPs for special needs students, and how do we make sure they're actually working when it's in a virtual environment? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm a results-oriented kind of person. So knowing what the expectations are at the beginning would be a must. What is the purpose of the IEP program? What are the expected outcomes? And then measuring to see that we actually achieve those things. And so for our special needs children, for all of our children that have an IEP, I would hope that we would be measuring those same things to make sure that we're being effective and that we are assisting and helping every student to excel.
Thank you. Phil Rice.
Wish those other two had showed up. Oh, me. The idea of IEPs, very difficult. But we have trained personnel in the school system. We have psychologists, psychiatrists. We have professionals. They are the ones to deal with that, to determine whether that's an appropriate IEP or not. I think what we actually found is that in some cases, virtual learning cannot solve the problem, which is why we brought a lot of those children back in school early. We felt as though they needed the contact. They needed the familiarity of the building more so than the rest of the students because of their special situation. And we made adjustments to that because we found out it wasn't working. Just that simple. It wasn't working. So when you find out something isn't working, move on, try something different. We'll find out what works. And in the school did work, and we're having success with that. So
Thank you so much. We'll turn now to Susan Morgan.
Many school systems have found that distance learning is hard for students with disabilities. We still have to make sure by government law that we give those students what they need for their education. We have to follow the IEP regardless of whether it's distance learning or in-building learning. So the special educators are responsible for adjusting the IEPs for the distance learning. Many districts have brought students back who are special needs to learn better in the building than outside. We just have to maintain vigilance to make sure that our kids are not dropping through the cracks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then finally, we'll ask Laura Layton to weigh in on this question.
Virtual learning is tough on everybody, but it's particularly tough on our special needs students and our students who have IEPs. It's very difficult for them to focus when they have a screen full of people. Therefore, one of the things that we can do to make it easier for them is to just have a one-on-one with a special ed teacher. This is written in their IEP, and sometimes that is the best way for them to retain their focus. The other thing that we can do, and that is what we are doing, is bringing them back as soon as possible so that they can get the in-person learning, which they absolutely need. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll turn now to our next question. This is a question about systemic issues, and I imagine an example of that, we have a lot of discussion in our culture today about systemic racism, for example.
Mhm.
And the question is, if a parent approached you with a systemic problem, how would you respond?
the response to that has to be, okay, I understand what you're saying. However, we need to get all questions cannot be resolved by a board member. They're not supposed to be. We're not designed to do that. We're designed to get them to the spot where they can be. So with that, that's an item that goes directly to the superintendent of schools, because everybody in the school system works for him. He works for us. If there's just, and then you need to follow up on it. If it's in fact something that's real, then we need to resolve the issue, change it. If it's perceived, then we still need to change it because the perception is truth to that person. We can work with it, but we as board members don't have the authority to deal with that at all. In fact, the law prohibits us from doing it by saying that the superintendent runs the schools, but we need to get it to him.
Thank you. We'll turn to Susan Morgan.
Let me move the furniture.
I'm going to grab onto the systemic racism question because it's something that I had to deal with a lot in my career. One of the ways that we worked with issues of systemic racism is something called study circles. Study circles were places where you had different students of different ethnicities, teachers, administrators, all together in a group, and they would follow guided questions. It was a wonderful experience. It was a hard experience, but I feel like this is something that Dorchester could use, and it would be really good for. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll turn now to Laura Layton.
One of the most important things that we can do as board members is to listen and to find out exactly what is the problem. Don't brush it off. Take it seriously, listen to the problem, and try to find out as much about it as possible. Where is it stemming from? How is it developing? What has happened? Listening, I believe, is the very first step. And then to investigate, to find out. And the person in charge of the investigation would be the superintendent. The superintendent is the one who would ultimately get the issue and resolve it. And after that, I would make sure that I followed up to be sure that the issue had been resolved to the satisfaction of the parent or teacher or whoever was involved. But I truly believe the most important part is listening and finding out what is really happening.
Thank you. And now we'll turn to Voncia Molock.
What can the board do about systemic racism? Well, I believe as a board, we could send a very strong message that systemic racism will not be tolerated in Dorchester County Public Schools. I believe as the board, we can work with the superintendent to take a look at our data, a really good look at our data. I've seen our suspension data, I've seen our alternative school data, and it looks suspect to me, to be honest. So let's look at the data, let's face what it says, and let's get rid of systemic racism in Dorchester County Public Schools.
Thank you. We'll turn to our next question now and begin with Susan Morgan. How can we improve student readiness for early learning?
How to improve student readiness. I would like for DCPS to engage the community to help prepare students for learning. Kindergarten readiness is an area that DCPS needs to work hard on. Fewer than half of Dorchester County students enter kindergarten with the academic, social, and emotional skills needed for learning. Preschool is the best place to start. DCPS needs to make a concerted effort to coordinate with the many nonprofit organizations in the community who are working towards this goal. And there are plenty of retired persons in the community who are able, willing to work with the students at both the preschool and even advanced levels. They should be welcomed into the system and not actively discouraged or ignored. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura Layton.
Dorchester County Public Schools runs a very, very active Judy Center. The Judy Center is especially for babies and parents. Babies can enter the Judy Center and parents bring them from birth to pre-K. And this is the time when the socialization skills and the pre-reading skills can be taught. We have a very strong Judy Center, and this is where our early childhood begins. It begins at birth. We work with them. We work with the parents on good parenting. We work with the children on pre-reading skills, but the Judy Center is where it all begins, and it begins at birth.
Thank you. Now we'll turn to Voncia Molock.
How can we assist for student readiness for early learning? Well, I'd like to take advantage of more volunteers in our schools to help with early learning. I'd like to take advantage of some summer school programs for our elementary school kids. When we look at the Maryland State Department of Education website, it says that 70% of our elementary kids are not proficient in math and reading. We've got some work to do. We need Head Start. We need early learning. We need everybody involved, and it's going to take all of us. Assisting parents, assisting kids, assisting teachers. It's going to take us all, but we can absolutely do it and make a difference for our kids.
Thank you. And now we'll turn to Phil Rice.
Well, to begin with, the Judy Center is the starting point, but not just that. We, as the Board of Education, through the Judy Center and other areas, partner with the other daycare centers that are licensed in Dorchester County, or at least in Cambridge. We make sure that they are up to snuff on what they need to do. We give them assistance when necessary. We give them guidance. We're trying to make that work. It is essential that we have universal pre-K. Without it, you have children coming to us not with just a 0 level. We have them coming with negative levels. We can't have that, but the parents have to help a little bit. We can present the programs to enhance it. That's our job, and that's what we intend to do.
Okay, thank you. This is going to be our last question, and it's going to warm everybody up for their closing statements. The question is, how does your training, experience, and approach to decision-making prepare you for serving on the board?
My experience. I have a master's degree in education, a bachelor's degree in English. I have 50 years of knowing the citizens of Dorchester County. I have 34 years of teaching, and now some of my best friends are actually the students that I taught in my first years of teaching. I have a very strong tie to the business community. I sit on the Planning and Zoning Board of Dorchester County. I have many, many experiences. I run 2 businesses with the help of my family, and I have served as president of Dorchester Retired Educators. I have much experience that prepares me for the job.
Thank you. And now we'll turn to Voncia Molock.
How does my experience prepare me for the Board of Education? Well, first of all, I came through Dorchester County Public Schools. I'm a product of DCPS, a proud product of DCPS, and I know the potential of every student in our county. I have a bachelor's degree in electronics engineering technology, a master's degree in management from Purdue University, and as I said earlier, I've got 33 years of experience in corporate America, managing multi-million-dollar budgets, managing contracts, managing unions, managing staff at all types of levels. I'm an IT expert, I'm a telecommunications expert, and I know how to get things done. I have a passion for helping our students succeed. I have a passion for results, and I have very little patience for wasting time. So I know that I would be a wonderful addition to our board.
Thank you so much. Now we'll turn to Phil Rice.
My very background is all over the place. From teaching school to working as an electrician, to managing offices, to working in a bank, dealing with bookkeeping, and having probably 35 years of budget experience. A school system is a business. Our product is a little bit more difficult to define and how to get done, but it's a business. You have to manage the money in order to keep the doors open. And since we don't create any money, we have to make sure that people that do appreciate how we are stewards of their money. That and the fact that I am somewhat of an outspoken individual, so most people don't have much of a problem knowing where I stand on any issue. I got you.
Thank you. And we have Susan Morgan will be our final respondent for that question.
Okay. I earned a bachelor's degree in history and psychology, a master's degree in history, and a master's in counselor education. I have a doctoral degree in psychology. I taught at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, Johnson C. Smith University, and Montgomery College for 10 years. As a resource counselor, I was able to assist parents with getting their children the help they needed. I did individual and group counseling, worked with family reunification of immigrant children, wrote and received grants to fund activities for impoverished and behavioral challenged youth, to name a few. I've also gone into the community to work with social groups to assist women who were suffering harassment. I feel that my experiences have prepared me to bring a different perspective to the Board of Education. In my years in public schools, I saw some of the worst that society can do to children, and I work to change things, and I want to do that here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have had a great slate of questions and an even better slate of answers tonight, but our time is running short. And so now I'm going to ask each of our candidates to give their closing remarks. You'll have 1.5 minutes to do so, and we'll begin with Voncia Molock.
Einstein defined insanity as doing the same things over and over and expecting different results. Therefore, why would we vote for the same board members who have not reduced violence in our schools, who have not raised academic progress, who have not heard all of our community voices? If we want better, we must vote differently. Our children need to be prepared with 21st century skills, such as collaboration, digital literacy, critical thinking, and problem solving, to be prepared for 21st century careers, such as social media manager, digital assistant, codeless programmer, information broker, as well as those quote unquote normal careers that are now tech enabled. Meaning doctors, they're using robots to operate. That's tech enabled. Cars and trucks are self-driving. That's tech enabled. Cashiers scan items instead of punching in prices. That's tech enabled. Our future and the future of our children are at stake here. If we want better for our children, the time to act differently and vote differently is now. I created the Children's Success Conference, the Student Success Conference, in collaboration with Purdue Farms and the Dorchester County Chamber of Commerce to help students see what they could be. My name is Voncia Molock, and I'm running for the Dorchester County Board of Education because I care deeply about all students succeeding. I have a proven success record, and I'm willing to work hard for the Board of Education.
Thank you so much. And now we'll ask Phil Rice for his ending comments.
Well, I think it's interesting. I haven't been in Dorchester County all that long. I got here in 1965, so I'm still an outsider. I am extremely proud of the support that I've received from the people of Dorchester County over the years. I know that I am a person who can get a job done, but what everybody has to understand is one vote doesn't get anything done. You have to have 3 in order to move forward. However, sometimes one vote can stop things. We have a team now which is dedicated to moving things forward without any resistance from any of the people in charge. In charge are not necessarily us, it's the people who run the day-to-day system. We have gotten the best choice I think that we could have chosen. We're moving forward. We're getting a lot of cooperation, and I think that in the next year or 2, we will see large strides. Thank you.
Now we'll hear closing remarks from Susan Morgan.
I want to thank the League of Women Voters and WHCP for giving us this opportunity to discuss issues related to the Board of Education. I'm running for a seat on the board because I want to bring some change, make it more student-centered, more transparent for parents, and more fair for teachers and staff. I feel my background gives me a wealth of experience from which to draw to achieve this. Sometimes when I speak with people about running for the board, they'll say, I don't have any children, so I really am not interested in the school board race. And my response is, but the health and economic viability of Cambridge and Dorchester County is important to you, isn't it? The best way to build a healthy and economically viable community is to have a good school system. So it's in everyone's best interest to vote in the Board of Education election. And I hope that on November 3rd, you'll vote for Susan Morgan for the District 3 seat on the board. Please visit my website at susanforschoolboard.net or my Facebook page at Susan Morgan for Board of Education member. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our final comment comes from Laura Layton.
Good evening, and I would like to again thank the League of Women Voters and WHCP for giving us this forum. The coming year is going to be a crucial one for Dorchester County Public Schools. We face many, many issues, one of which is getting our students back in school safely. The other one being the financial stress that the pandemic has brought on the state and the county. I do believe that we now have strong leadership in our system. We have a strong superintendent, and he has put together a first-class team of directors. I've been on the board for 4 years now, and in the first 2 months of being on the board, I learned something very, very important. I learned that my one vote didn't change anything. If I wanted to change, I had to build a network of people who would agree with me. I had to look at all the different personalities that were on the board, and it took me about 2 years to really get acquainted with everybody. I am vice president, and I humbly ask for your vote.
Thank you so much. With that, we conclude our evening of the candidate forum for the Board of Education. I'd like you to join me in applauding the candidates for their participation tonight. The League of Women Voters used to do this the old-fashioned way. We were jettisoned into the future and have to do it remotely because of the virus. So we're very excited to have participated in this. Now it's your job to vote for a Board of Education representative. The next Cambridge Community Conversation will be held 2 weeks from tonight on October 21st, and it features County Manager Keith Atkins, and it will be moderated by Dave Ryan, editor of the Dorchester Banner. I would like to send out a special thank you to the ladies of the League of Women Voters for all the work they did to prepare for these debates by identifying, inviting, and assisting the candidates who participated in the forums. Special thanks goes to Julian Jackson, WHCP's technical director for our show, and the sponsors of the Cambridge Community Conversations. This broadcast will air again at 1 o'clock on WHCP 101.5 FM this coming Sunday, and it will be permanently housed on WHCP's Facebook and YouTube channels. I'm Glenna Heckathorn, thanking you for joining us tonight. Good night.